I can't believe that in 5 simple steps you can make a beat like this. Yo, what's good everybody? Hope you're all doing well. I'm back doing another video, and I'm going to be showing you today how to take your melodies from something like this.
Oh brother, this guy stinks!
To something like this.
I've looked at this for 5 hours now.
Tearing up, man.
Now this can be done in 4 easy steps, so let's break this down so everybody understands. So I'm making the melody in FL keys today just to keep it simple, and the first thing you really come up with when making melodies is honestly just the chord progression. So I'm starting with a simple 140 BPM, just keeping it to the default of my template, and the first thing I do is I actually change the scale. You can either pick the scale or just place notes down and see what you like. Sometimes I start with the scale, sometimes I place notes down. This is a simple chord progression you can come up with. So I'll show you how to make this from scratch. So I've gone ahead and enabled ghost channels so you can see where my notes are placed, and I'll show you how I came up with that chord progression. So the first thing you want to do is you want to place a note down and kind of figure out what scale you want to work in, and once you figure that out, it makes it a lot easier. The first thing you can do is you can build a minor chord. The easiest way to make a minor chord is you skip a note in the scale and then place a note. To build a major chord, you skip 2 notes in the scale and then you place a note, skip a note, and then place a note. So let's start with the major chord. So in the scale here, you can see that this white note is in the scale, this white note is in the scale, and this one is in the scale. So we're going to go ahead and skip 2 of those and place a note. Now to keep it with the major chord, we're going to skip 1 more note and place a note. And you get something as simple as that. Now you want to build out the chord progression, so you kind of want to build more chords that sound pretty good, and that's how I came up with this simple chord progression. Feel free to kind of break out of that whole chord progression builder by skipping notes and stuff. You can also just place notes, and if it sounds good, then hey, it sounds good. And that's kind of what I did with this last note here. It could be a chord, but honestly I don't know too much music theory, so I just kind of place these notes, and to me it sounded great. So great, you've come up with a simple chord progression. Now how do you take it to the next level? So we started with a very basic chord progression. Now we can kind of escalate it and build a melody. So the easiest way to build melodies is again by staying in the scale and finding something that's catchy. So as you can see here, what you want to do is you want to take your chord progression below and then build a melody on top. Something as simple as that is kind of keeping a bounce so you can kind of bob your head, and it's not something that's too crazy that someone's not going to be able to rap over. So the simplest way to do this is you kind of use the half bars and then you build a melody that's kind of repetitive. So this isn't repetitive at all, but if I were to copy it over, then that would be basically my 8 bars. And this is nice and slow, that it has a good build up to it. And I personally always like to add the highest note in the scale to the last kind of note that's being played. And this kind of transitions it back nicely into the same melody. Okay, sweet. So we've done step 2, which is kind of build a basic melody. Now, how do we take it even further than this so it's not as boring anymore? Now we build the very top melody, and this is the kind of thing that changes up the whole bounce to the beat. So this is where you can get a little bit more creative with it. And we're also adding in some of the root notes. To kind of build this out and to build this top melody out, what you want to do is you want to copy these root notes down, and it comes down to the instrument as well. For me personally, I always like having the bass notes play an octave lower just so it hits a little harder. So I'll play this out and let's see how it sounds. Okay, so the easiest part of this is honestly just copying these root notes here and placing them down an octave, which is how we get this. Now building the top melody is a little bit, it comes down to your personality and what you like as a sound and kind of where you want the bounce to be. So what I usually do is when coming up with these top melodies, I turn on the metronome by clicking this little button up here, and then I listen to what sounds good and what's missing. So let me just go back to this. I'll mute these notes. So I'll find the vibe for it, and I'll kind of fill in where I feel notes are missing. So I'll quickly come up with another melody over here. Okay, perfect. I came up with this in 30 seconds, and that was just kind of placing notes and feeling what sounded good. And that metronome really helps you kind of find the beat and the bounce, so you can fill in those empty spots. Perfect. So now that we've done step 3, I believe, this is pretty much kind of where we're gonna take a step back from working on the melody And now focus on the sounds. So obviously this is the most important part of any beat. You're not just going to be using a piano sound for your beats and melodies and stuff. So you start adding in different VSTs, you start adding in different sounds, and you try to find what sounds good. So all we're doing is we're really just taking the melody that we created and then placing them in different VSTs and different sounds. And the really important part is that we want to layer the sound in different VSTs. So I'll just quickly scroll through the VSTs here. As you can see, it's all the same stuff that we came up with earlier. It's just copying certain elements and pasting them in. So I'll play this first sound here, which is kind of copying that main chord progression that we have. I didn't even copy the top melody because I felt like it was too much with adding the sounds. So that's also a direction you can go in, is sometimes you don't need that extra melody. You can add it in certain parts of the beat. For me personally, I didn't find it useful, so I scrapped it for this portion. And the important part of some of these melodies is actually the effects you add on. So, I mean, no effects, it just sounds like this. And you might like that. I personally wanted to add in a ping pong sound effect from Fruity Delay. Just kind of give it that bounce. The next element that I added was another Analog Labs instance, and this is what I came up with. And this might look a little different from my bass melody, and all I did was I took these middle notes here from our chord that we created and just shifted them up an octave. So mess around with the chords a little bit, copy stuff to different octaves, it gives it a different dynamic and a different feel. Perfect, and now let's move on to the next sound. For this I use Electra, and this is kind of where it gets interesting. If you have ARPs in your VSTs, try and use them because it does give you a really nice bounce. And this is what I came up with copying those same chords. Without the effect. With the effect. Very subtle. That alone brings a lot of the bounce to the melody. And then the final thing I added was just kind of this. Was just this kind of pad, synth pad, I don't know how to describe it. And as you can tell, I added Portal and some reverb to that, so let's turn those off, see what it sounds like stock. So that's kind of boring. Portal added a lot of dynamic sound to it. So together with those elements, this is what we get. And just like that, you can become a melody god. And just for reference, I will add some drums in so you can hear the difference between the worst melody that we made and drums, and then changing it up with just the piano and then adding in those specific VSTs. And I'll let this play for the outro, but I hope you guys like this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you take away some of these tips and use them in your own melodies and beats. But yeah, stay tuned for more videos. We'll try and upload more consistently. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm PJ, and I'm out. Peace.